This is going to be your guide to using Parasect in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. So here's the thing, I am really cheering for Parasect in Pokemon Let's Go. I feel like it's actually one of the stronger Pokemon because it gets access to one of the best moves in the game and its stats are not terrible. In 7th generation, yeah, these are pretty bad and I wish it had more to work with, but 60 hit points, 80 defense, 80 special defense in Let's Go is actually above average. Not getting into tank territory, but it survives a little better than most of the Pokemon. 95 attack, not great, but also not miserable, and since Parasect isn't relying on, ultimate life orb, crazy boosting shenanigans like a lot of other Pokemon, it survives, it does moderate amounts of damage, and it doesn't need to rely on two-shotting or doing crazy amounts of damage, so Parasect just kind of exists in a pretty decent state. The typing, though, needs some work. The bug grass, man, it's way too many weaknesses for me to feel comfortable. 4 times flying, 4 times fire, poison, rock, bug, ice. The only main, saving grace about this is these aren't the most, common moves, because poison, few Pokemon are going to have it, but there's really no reason, because if you're going up against Venusaur, Vileplume, Victory Bell, all the other grass-type Pokemon, except for, most of the other grass-type Pokemon, it's just going to be a neutral hit. So Poison kind of doesn't really do anything in Let's Go, and if Pokemon are choosing to not run the Sludge Bomb or their Poison option, then that means, hey, Parasect finds a way of avoiding a weakness, and it's trading that for a quad resist to ground, in a format where everything is earthquaking everything. That is incredibly powerful. Resistant to fighting, water, electric, and then 4 times resistant to grass. So, kind of common, but not the worst weaknesses, and then decent resistances to offset that. So if Parasect can find a good opportunistic in, it's going to do all right, especially because it gets one of the best moves in the game, like I talked about. So hop into Pokemon Showdown, Spore. The only guaranteed sleep in Pokemon Let's Go belongs Parasect, because Parasect is the only Spore Pokemon. Well, only fully evolved Spore Pokemon, minus the Paras. Either way, so we got that going for us. Leech Seed, another very good move, gives us Sustain in a format that lacks Sustain. Leech Life. Leech Life received a buff in the 7th generation. Parasect now gets to carry over with that. 95 attack, stab move. Alright, this isn't terrible. Then we Protect, we heal up, and we're good to go. So that's kind of it. I was also trying to explore the Mega Drain. Unfortunately, 60 special attack, kind of weak. But also, if this was a higher special attack, what if it was an 80 and then 70 here or something? That'd be bad. So on this tanky standpoint, that's something. Mega Drain, I'm going to show it later, and also it does have Giga Drain power, so 75 base. I'm going to show that later, just kind of see if it does anything for us. If not, the Leech Life seems pretty good. And then I have these other options, because this is the moveset, guys. You look at what Parasect gets, there's really nothing else that it wants to run, should run, or can run, unless you go, really cheesy shenanigans right here. If you get in on a Pokemon that has no super effective hits against you, is like a 3-hit KO, you Spore them, you Reflect, you Seed them, and then you just don't take damage. And then, you just kind of survive on them waking up, and actually just Spore predictions, too. They wake up, they get a little bit of a hit, you Spore, you heal up on Leech Seed, you refresh your Reflect Light Screen, and just stall them out forever. This isn't the ultimate must-run recommended set, but if you kind of want to bring some weirdness to the team while running Parasect, this is absurd utility. This is actually full utility, because an Asleep Pokemon can be used for a switch, Reflect Light Screen can be used for switch, or if Parasect goes down and these are up for another 1, 2, 3 turns, then that's going to definitely be benefiting, and if the Pokemon that knocks you out is seeded, that means the Pokemon that you're bringing in, it gets a little sustain on the side. So Parasect, if these damage calculations work out, has some options to do some crazy stuff. So now, it survives. Super effective Ice Beam non-stab, 100 special attack. That is going to be about 65%. The Leech Life, though, onto the Starmie means we win this matchup. Leech Life comes in, boom, its potential 2-hit KO, heals up for 45, and we're just in the ranges to where we're okay. So say we take, alright, so 65, so let's say we take that, we're at 35, we heal up 45, that pushes us to 80, doesn't have the range to KO us, even if it's the worst case scenario. So we're coming out, not with amazing amount of health, that's the only drawback here. That's where we have to start thinking about some other interesting options, because if we want to exit this fight with the most amount of hit points possible, we Leech Life, and then we go into Leech Seed, and then we Protect. Because we're going to be taking that hit anyways, and Leech Seed, it's 1-for-1, so we're gaining the amount of health that we're sapping. Leech Life is 50%. Also, I want to see if Brave Nature did anything for us. It really doesn't, so I'm just saying go with a Defensive Nature, Impish Nature, or the Relaxed. It doesn't really matter since we are one of just the slowest Pokemon in general. So now, that's going to make things interesting because we're healing 40%. So we're still going to be in good surviving ranges, and then we're getting that extra 20% back in full because of the Leech Seed, so at least making us in a slightly little bit better hit point scenario depending on what the opponent goes into after that. But these are some of the weird matchups that we end up surviving. And then I wanted to show the Mega Gyarados matchup, because the Mega Gyarados matchup is really weird. Because I was like wondering, like, alright, what if there's a Dark-type Pokemon? How much damage can we get against Dark-type Pokemon? Try to get some things in our favor. Well, the Leech Life, if we're running a relaxed nature, so we need the defensive nature, so that way we don't die instantly. But if we have the offensive nature, well then we're getting wrecked by this, and we have like a less chance to survive. But then it turns into a 2-hit KO, so more recovery. It's really unfortunate. This is why I wish, Parasect, 75 hit points, 90 defense. That would make this Pokemon so much better, and it'd be so much crazier. But yeah, with this, like, the things get kind of weird, because we can switch into a Waterfall, eat that move, survive the crunch, then heal a little bit off of Leech Life. So depending on how much health the Gyarados is at, that's a thing. Now, if it's just a crunch matchup, that's also where it gets kind of weird, because we can eat a crunch, hit a Leech Life, eat a crunch, hit a Leech Life, and then there's a chance that we get the KO off of that in the neutral. And that's where we kind of transition into Parasect, because the ideal situation for Parasect is that you Spore, and then they're asleep for 2 turns. If you can get that in a lot of setups, you start changing battles and things get pretty wacky. The Mega Aerodactyl, I want to show that you survive the Rock Slide. This is like your Giga Drain Leech Life. Just better off you Leech Seed, you Protect, you switch out. Hopefully that Pokemon doesn't take a lot of damage from Rock Slide, receives a little Leech Life, and you were able to take off 3/8 off an Aerodactyl. And I think that means your Parasect is going to be around 40% of its hit points, because it was able to get a fair amount back. Actually, it might be closer to 50%, because Aerodactyl does have more hit points than the Parasect. So Parasect is going to be fairly healthy going into this. And it means you can switch in, Aerodactyl, there's the Earthquake, doing almost no damage. So Parasect, switch it in on that Earthquake, use Leech Seed, you see the Aerodactyl, you can Protect, you switch out, things are good for you right there, and then hopefully you can bring in Parasect on another really beneficial thing, so it can Spore, Leech Seed, Protect, survive something, Leech Life, and try to regain. So Parasect is either a good anti-sweeper in some situations, or in a strong neutral, it can just really out-sustain and keep putting Pokemon to sleep, or setting up Leech Seed on them and just out-sustaining them. The Alolan Muck is one of my favorite interactions with the Parasect, because your Leech Life does solid damage. It's not like this ultimate hard counter, and the Poison Jab does a lot back to you, so this is where things get silly. Muck outspeeds us. We put them to sleep on Spore. We then set up a Leech Seed. After that, this is what I mean, like, where you need it to where the Alolan Muck has to be asleep twice, but then you hit him for a Leech Life, and then you Protect. So that means we're going to be getting 50% of our hit points. So 3/8 of a 105 base hit point Pokemon is actually going to be 50% of our Parasect. So we're getting that back on top of the 22% from the Leech Life, which means we're building up enough hit points to survive a second Poison Jab. We Leech Life again, and then we can finish them off by having the Leech Seed into Protect once again. So we win? It's weird, but like that's kind of matchup, and then Parasect is kind of sitting on a decent amount of hit points. Also, the cool thing about running Protect is our 4x weakness to flying. It does exist with like Drill Peck and certain moves and stuff like that, but if a Pokemon is like, if there's like some mad lad out there running the fly, we at least get to infinitely protect that, so that gives us a thing. So at least that's not something that instantly kills us, but it also puts us into like a really weird matchup, because they use fly, we miss our move, we protect, the fly gets negated, and that's kind of it. So depending on like if you get a fly prediction, you can like use that as a switch opportunity or something. But I just kind of wanted to point that out as well, since we're going into a lot of heavy Protect shenanigans. The Leech Life just one-shots an Alakazam. Alakazam, it's a 2-hit KO on us, so we don't have a safe switch in, but Alakazam, Psychic, actually not an insane amount, and then we heal it all back. So against certain Psychic-type Pokemon, we're in a pretty good position with how that goes. Also, let's just show the Mega Alakazam. So Alakazam. Unfortunately, the Alakazam matchup, like the 20 defense points Alakazam gets, changes that from a massive one-hit KO to, well, now we don't have it. It's a 68% chance. That's pretty solid odds. We still don't get one shot by the Psychic, so we are going to be healing up a lot, and then we can kind of use that for later. So the Alakazam matchup, not the worst. Mega Alakazam gets a bit more interesting. That's kind of it. Then the Kangaskhan matchup. So once again, if we're in this is like our ideal situation. A neutral hit, something that's 3-hit KOing us, Leech Life doing average damage. So what we do is we set up the Leech Seed, we Spore, we Leech Life, we Protect, We Spore, we Leech Life, we Protect, and we're just kind of banking and rolling on the 2 turns of sleep, but also we can like maybe try to go for a Wake Up into immediate Spore again. So we take a little bit of hit, we get that Spore, we refresh, we Leech Life twice, we go for a Protect, all the while we're getting sustained from the Leech Seed, so this is going to end us above 50% hit points, and then taking out a massive threat like the Mega Kangaskhan. So if we're not eating super effective hits, Parasect is cleaning up, and it's doing some really good work. Blastoise, want to kind of see what happened here. So the Giga Drain, it's actually where we find more damage, but it's also pretty niche. We survive the Ice Beam, and again, if we already saw what happens with the Alolan Muck. So if we survive the Ice Beam, get the Spore, Leech Seed, Leech Life, Protect. So it gets complicated with the Parasect because we're dealing with like a lot of percentages and numbers and healing and just weird little things that add up over time like that. But we come out on top on a lot of matchups just through the overall sustain of it. And then Gengar. So we have a Stab, powerful 130 special attack move coming from this Gengar. Again, considering something like the Jolteon, it can't use the Thunderbolt against us, so it'd be reduced to a very low power Shadow Ball, in which case we get to set up and have a field day on it. This is not a good matchup though because our Leech Life and our Giga Drain don't really do too much, but we can survive, Leech Seed, Protect, and then get the Spore in there, and then go for like a little bit and at least take off something from the Gengar. So any Pokemon that are already weakened, Parasect is going to be having a great time against them because then it doesn't have to feel like it has to work as hard to get everything back. But then in the full health matchups, Parasect wins a lot of 1v1s. I think that's something that kind of notes about the Pokemon. That's why I'm such a big fan of it. So hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.